She begged for work, but everyone turned her away. The alien woman stood in the long line under the hot sun. Her clothes were old, her hands were shaking. People behind her whispered and pointed. Some laughed. Others moved away from her. Her name was Niraka. She was a widow from a poor alien planet. Her husband had died in the last war. Now she was alone with 3 small children to feed. She had walked for hours just to get here. She had heard there were jobs in the human city. She waited in front of a tall metal gate. A guard looked her up and down. His face was cold. "Job?" she asked in a soft voice. The guard frowned. "Go home. We don't hire aliens," she tried to explain. "Please, I can clean. I can cook. I learn fast." But he turned his back and waved her away. Others behind her pushed forward. She stepped aside, her eyes full of tears. Niraka walked to the next building, then the next, then the next. Everywhere it was the same. "Sorry, no jobs for your kind. We don't want trouble. Go beg somewhere else." One woman even shouted, "Your people smell like death." Niraka didn't shout back. She only bowed her head and left. She was tired, her feet were bleeding, but her heart hurt more than her body. She thought about her children, waiting in a broken tent outside the city. They hadn't eaten in 2 days. She had lied to them in the morning. She said, "I'll bring food, I promise." But now she had nothing. She sat down near the road, next to a trash bin. Her legs gave up. She placed her face in her hands. And for the first time in many years, she cried. The sun started to set. Shadows stretched across the street. The city lights came on. Everyone walked fast to their homes. No one looked at her, except one. A man stopped a few feet away. He was human. Tall, rough-looking, and wore old work boots and a simple jacket. He carried a toolbox in one hand. He stared at her. Not with hate, not with fear, just curiosity. She felt his eyes and looked up. Her eyes were red. She quickly wiped her face and tried to stand. "I'm not begging," she said, "just looking for work." The man didn't speak. He looked at her thin arms, her torn dress, and her bare feet. "You got kids?" he asked. She nodded slowly. 3, all small, all hungry. He thought for a second. "You know how to clean?" "Yes." "You lie?" "No." "You steal?" "Never." He gave a small nod, then pointed with his chin. "My place needs help. House is a mess. I work long hours. You can stay in the back room. No money, but food. And your kids too." Niraka stared at him, shocked. No one had offered her anything today. Only this man. A stranger. "Why?" she asked in a whisper. He shrugged. "You asked. Others didn't." She hesitated. Could it be a trap? A trick? But her stomach growled, and her legs were too tired to walk any further. "I will work hard," she said. "I will not be a problem." He nodded again. "Name's Ben." "Niraka." "All right, Niraka. Come on." She followed him. The street was still loud. The city didn't care. But in that moment, for the first time in days, she had hope. As they walked away, a man across the road watched them with narrow eyes. He recognized Ben. He didn't like aliens, and he didn't like humans helping them. He took a photo on his phone and sent it to someone. "Problem," he wrote. "A human just took in an alien beggar." But Niraka didn't know this. She only knew one thing. Someone finally said yes. He took her in, but made one condition. Ben's house stood far from the main road, small, quiet, and surrounded by tall trees. Niraka followed him with slow steps. Her legs were shaking, but she forced herself to walk straight. Her children needed her to be strong. The front door creaked as he opened it. Inside, the place smelled of metal and oil. Tools were on the table. Dust covered the floor. A small heater clicked in the corner, struggling to keep the room warm. Ben turned to her. "This isn't a fancy place," he said. But it's safe. She nodded. Her eyes looked around the room like a lost child. It's more than we had. He pointed down a narrow hallway. Back room. Not much, just a bed and some blankets. Bring your kids in the morning. You'll all stay here. Her lips trembled. Thank you. He raised his hand. But one condition. Niraka froze. Ben's voice was calm but firm. No lies. Not about your past. Not about your kids. Not even a small one. She blinked. I don't lie. Good, he said. Because I've been lied to before. Never again. She bowed her head. I understand. Ben handed her a bowl of hot soup. Steam rose into her face. It smelled like garlic and soft vegetables. Her stomach twisted with hunger, but she held the bowl in both hands, waiting. You can eat, he said. I'll save it for my children, she whispered. Ben sat down on a crate. You're already passing my test. That night, Niraka slept in the back room. She wrapped herself in an old blanket. It smelled of dust and old wood, but she smiled. It was warm. At sunrise, she ran back to the edge of the city, heart pounding. Her children were still there, in a torn tent near a garbage pipe. Her youngest was coughing. The middle child was too weak to walk. Come, she said softly, wrapping them in her arms. Someone gave us a home. Ben watched from the window as she arrived with the kids. The children were thin, shaking, and quiet. The oldest tried to stand tall but kept holding his little brother's hand. Ben opened the door. Names? Niraka smiled gently. This is Cairo, my oldest. Leia is 5, and the little one, Zuni. Ben crouched to Zuni's level. You sick? Zuni didn't speak. His nose was red, his eyes half shut. Ben stood and said, All right, first rule, you all eat first. He brought out a tray with toast, eggs, and juice. The kids stared in disbelief. You don't have to work for this, he said. Just eat. Tears ran down Niraka's face. She covered her mouth. Why are you doing this? Ben looked at her, then at the kids. Because I was hungry once too. Later, Niraka cleaned the house from top to bottom. She fixed the heater with a trick her husband once taught her. She folded clothes, sorted tools, swept every corner. Ben came home from the factory, covered in dust. He paused at the door. The house was warm. It smelled like food. The children were laughing, softly for the first time. He stared for a long second, then smiled without showing it. You did all this in one day? He asked. Niraka nodded. I told you. I learn fast. Ben walked to the table and put down his toolbox. Then he said something strange. There's something you need to know. Niraka turned, nervous. What is it? I didn't help you because I'm a good man, he said. She frowned. Then, why? Ben looked at the kids. Because helping you makes me feel alive again. But outside, in the shadows, a neighbor watched. He narrowed his eyes. Filthy aliens, he whispered. He made a call. She's still in the human's house. She brought the kids. The voice on the other end replied coldly. Good. Let them settle in. Then we'll make our move. The human finds the children and feeds them. First, Ben came home later than usual that night. The factory machines had broken down again, and his back hurt from lifting heavy parts. He opened the front door, expecting silence. Instead, he heard a strange sound, laughter. He paused. It was soft, almost like music, the laughter of children. His eyes narrowed as he walked down the hallway toward the back room. The old floor creaked under his boots. The door was open. Inside, the alien widow, Niraka, sat on the floor with her children. They weren't playing with toys. They had none. But they were using empty soup cans and wooden spoons pretending to cook. Zuni, the smallest one, made a bubbling noise with his lips. Kiro acted like a strict chef. Leia stirred invisible soup in a pot. Ben didn't speak. He only stood there quiet. The children didn't notice him. But Niraka did. Her eyes met his. She smiled. Something warm moved in Ben's chest, a feeling he hadn't known in years. Later that night, Ben opened a cupboard in the kitchen. It was almost empty. Just a few old cans, a half loaf of bread, and some rice. He stared at it, frowning. Then he turned to Niraka. "You and the kids eat anything?" She nodded. "We don't need much." Ben walked out without a word. When he returned an hour later, he carried 2 big paper bags. Inside were fresh vegetables, eggs, milk, and fruits. Niraka's mouth fell open. "You bought this? For us?" Ben didn't look at her. He placed the food on the counter. "For the kids," he said. "They need real food." That night, Niraka cooked a small but warm meal, egg soup with rice and soft bread. The smell filled the whole house. Ben sat at the table with the children. Kiro passed him a spoon. "You eat too, Mr. Ben." Ben looked at the small, thin hand. "You should eat first." Kiro smiled. "Mama says sharing makes us strong." Ben didn't reply. But he took the spoon and dipped it in the soup. Maybe it was the tiredness. Maybe it was the silence. But for the first time in many years, he ate dinner with a family. And it felt right. But across the street, someone else was watching. A man stood behind dark curtains, holding a phone to his ear. "They look settled," he said. "The alien kids are in his house now." A voice replied, cold and deep. "He's protecting them," the man whispered. "He's making us look weak, helping outsiders." There was a pause. Then the voice said, "Let's remind him what happens to humans who forget who they are." The man smiled. The next morning, Ben found a dead animal, nailed to his door. Blood dripped down the wood. Niraka screamed when she saw it. The children hid behind her. Ben stood still, jaw tight, hands clenched. He pulled the animal down and threw it in the trash. He said nothing. But that night, he added extra locks to the doors, and he gave Niraka a small knife. "Only if you need it," he said. She took it with shaking hands. 3 days passed. The kids looked healthier. Zuni was even smiling now. Ben fixed up an old room for them with beds and clean sheets. Niraka cleaned every inch of the house. She even fixed a broken light in the hallway. "You're full of surprises," Ben said. She smiled softly. "I told you, I learn fast." But then one night Niraka woke up in the dark. Something was wrong. She heard a noise outside, a whisper, then glass breaking. She rushed to the front room. Ben was already there holding a crowbar. "Stay with the kids," he said. "But now," she ran back and held her children close. Ben stepped outside into the night. They call him a traitor for helping her. The glass crunched under Ben's boots as he stepped outside. A brick had been thrown through his window. It lay in the dirt, wrapped in paper. He picked it up. Written in big red letters were 4 words: "Humans help humans only." Ben looked around. Shadows moved at the edge of the street. Someone was still watching. He said nothing, just stared into the darkness with hard eyes. Then he turned and went back inside. The next morning, the local mechanic shop didn't let Ben punch in. "Sorry, Ben," his manager said. "Got too much heat from the town council." Ben frowned. "What heat?" "You're housing an alien." "Man, a whole alien family. You know how this place works." Ben's voice was low. "I'm not asking for charity. I just want my job." The manager looked uncomfortable. "We all like you, Ben, but orders are orders." Ben stepped out, his fists tight. As he walked home, people stared. A woman hissed, "Alien lover." A teenage boy threw a stone near his feet. A shopkeeper flipped. His sign to closed when Ben walked by. At home, Niraka opened the door and gasped. "What happened?" Ben looked at his hands. "Lost my job." Her face turned pale. "Because of me?" He shook his head. "Because of small minds." She felt guilt rise in her chest. "I can go, I'll take the children." Ben raised his voice. "No." The room fell silent. Then he softened. No one chases off family. She covered her mouth. Her eyes welled up. She had never been called. That before, not by a human. But trouble was just beginning. Later that night, someone painted a word on his wall in red, traitor. The kids didn't understand, but they knew it was something bad. Kiro asked, "Are we bad, Mama?" Naraka hugged him tightly. "No. You are good. So good." Ben walked in with a bucket and scrubbed the paint off. His hands shook with anger. Not fear, just pure rage. The next day, 2 local men blocked Ben's path as he carried groceries home. "You're the guy who took in that alien trash," one of them said. Ben didn't stop walking. "They're cleaner than you." The other one shoved him. "She got you brainwashed, huh?" Ben dropped the bag and punched him straight in the jaw. The man fell hard. The second guy raised a pipe, but Ben stared him down. "Try it," he growled. They ran. Ben picked up the groceries and walked home. When he opened the door, Naraka saw the blood on his knuckles. Her face turned pale. "You fought?" "For you," he said. She stared at him. "Why?" Ben's voice was quiet. "Because when no one stood for me, someone should have." That night, Naraka cooked his favorite meal from her planet. She had found old spices and made it with human ingredients. He tasted it and smiled. "Spicy," he said, coughing a little. She laughed for the first time. A small, sweet sound. Later, when the children were asleep, Naraka sat near the window. The stars were bright above. Quiet. Far away. Ben joined her, holding 2 cups of tea. "You're not scared?" she asked. He shook his head. "Fear only wins, if we kneel to it." She looked at him. "And if they come again?" Ben smiled softly. "Then I'll stand again." But down the street, a man loaded a weapon. "They think this is a joke," he muttered. "Let's make it serious." Her sick child stops breathing. And he runs. It was around 2 a.m. when the first cough came. Then another. Then silence. Naraka woke up in panic. Something didn't feel right. She sat up on the floor, her heart racing, and turned to her youngest child, Zuni. His little body was stiff. His skin had turned a strange pale blue color. His mouth was open, but no sound came out. His chest wasn't moving. "Zuni," she whispered. He didn't answer. "Zuni." She shook him. Nothing. The scream that left her throat didn't sound like her voice. It was raw, desperate, and full of fear. Ben jumped out of bed. He ran into the room half-dressed, eyes wide. What happened? Naraka's face was soaked with tears. "He's not breathing. He's not. Ben didn't ask questions. He grabbed Zuni, wrapped him in a blanket, and rushed toward the door. The night was cold. Rain had started to fall. Ben didn't stop. He didn't take his truck. He knew the clinic wouldn't accept aliens if they saw it coming. Instead, he ran. Through the muddy roads, past sleeping houses. His boots slammed against the ground with each step. Zuni didn't move in his arms. Ben shouted at the dark sky, "Don't you dare die on me, kid." At the city clinic, the receptionist looked up, confused. "You're soaked. What happened?" Ben placed the child on the counter. "He's not breathing." The nurse leaned forward, then stopped. "Wait. This is an alien child." Ben slammed, his hand on the counter. "He's a child," the nurse hesitated. A doctor rushed over. "What species?" "Half-Altari," Ben answered. "He's been sick all week, now he's silent." The doctor looked around. "Bring him in." The nurse whispered, "But protocol?" The doctor snapped, "Shut up and move." Back at home, Naraka sat on the floor holding her other 2 children. Kiro asked, "Is Zuni going to die?" Naraka couldn't answer. She couldn't even speak. Her heart had stopped the moment her baby went quiet. She didn't even notice the blood coming from her nails where she dug them into her hands. 1 hour later, Ben stood in the hallway outside the emergency room. His shirt was soaked. His knuckles were bleeding again, from pounding on the clinic's doors. A nurse finally came out. He's stable. Ben almost collapsed. The nurse looked at him strangely. You're not even his real father. Why did you run like that? Ben looked up. Because someone had to. He returned at sunrise. Niraka ran to the door, her eyes wild. Ben held up his hand. He's okay. He's breathing. They gave him oxygen and medicine. She fell to her knees. A soft sob escaped her lips. Ben kneeled beside her. You did good getting help early. No, she said. You saved him. You. She stopped. She wanted to say something. Something big. But the words couldn't come out. So she just held his hand. Ben didn't pull away. Later that day, Ben visited the clinic again. The doctor pulled him aside. We'll release the child tomorrow. But this won't stay quiet. Someone leaked the footage. Ben frowned. What footage? The security camera. You carrying him in. It's already spreading online. Ben sighed. Let them talk. Back in town, the angry voices returned. He broke the law. He endangered human patients. He risked everything for a monster baby, but others stayed quiet. Some even watched the video of Ben running through the rain with that tiny blue-skinned child in his arms, and their hearts softened. And somewhere far away in a dark council room, a voice whispered, "This human may become a problem, or a symbol." She tries to leave, but he stops her. The suitcase was small, old, torn at the corner. Its zipper was broken, but Niraka still packed it, carefully, silently, as the sun rose outside Ben's house. The children were still sleeping. Her hands trembled as she folded the blanket. She had no money, no food, no plan. But she had made up her mind. They had already taken Ben's job, smashed his windows, painted traitor on his wall, and now, after the clinic incident, people were spitting at his feet. She couldn't let him suffer more because of her. Ben woke up to the sound of the back door creaking. He stepped into the hallway and froze. Niraka stood there with the suitcase in one hand, her kids huddled close behind her. What are you doing? She didn't. Look at him. We can't stay. Ben stepped forward. You're running? She nodded. They'll hurt you next. I can't let that happen. Ben's voice was low but sharp. And where will you go? Out there with no food? No medicine? She didn't answer. I don't care what they say, Ben added. You're not leaving. Her eyes finally met his. They were full of sorrow. I've lost everything once. My planet, my husband, my dignity. She looked down at her kids. I won't lose you too. Ben walked closer. You haven't lost me. Her voice cracked. Why do you care? I'm not your kind. Ben stared at her hard. You're a mother. That's all I need to know. He took the suitcase and placed it back inside. Niraka fell to her knees, silently crying. I'm so tired, she whispered. Ben knelt beside her. Then rest, just for tonight. That evening, Ben made dinner again. Simple stew with bread. The kids sat around the table. Zuni was stronger now. He even asked for more. Niraka watched them from the corner, her hands still shaking. After the kids went to bed, Ben stood by the window, looking out at the empty road. They're scared of you, he said quietly, but you didn't do anything wrong. They see me as a burden, Niraka replied. Ben shook his head. They're wrong. He turned toward her. You didn't ask for help. You asked for a job. You never begged. You earned this. She looked at the small home around her. Then she whispered, You gave me more than work. You gave me back my worth. Suddenly, a loud knock hit the door. Ben's body tensed. He grabbed the iron rod he kept behind the shelf. Another knock. Harder. This time, He motioned for Naraka to get the kids. When he opened the door, it wasn't a mob. It was an old man, white beard, thick coat. Ben recognized him, Mr. Holloway, the oldest farmer in town. "I saw the video," he said. Ben said nothing. Mr. Holloway looked past Ben and saw Naraka holding Zuni. "She saved that boy," he said. "You saved him too." Ben raised an eyebrow. "And?" The old man sighed. "Got a spare field that needs planting. Could use 2 extra hands. 1 human, 1 fast learner." He smiled at Naraka. Ben blinked. "You offering her a job?" "I'm offering her a chance," Mr. Holloway said. "Just like someone once gave me." Naraka stepped forward slowly, unsure. The old man tipped his hat. "You work hard, you earn your place, just like the rest of us." Naraka nodded slowly. "Thank you." Mr. Holloway turned to leave. "Some folks are waking up, son. Maybe not all, but a few." He looked back at Ben. "You keep standing. You're changing something." As he disappeared into the night, Naraka turned to Ben. "Why? Is he helping?" Ben gave a half smile. Maybe he was tired of being silent too. "They call her wife," and his answer shocks everyone. It started with a mistake. A curious child at the local market pointed at Naraka and whispered loudly to his mother, "Is she his wife?" Everyone nearby turned to look. The human man beside Naraka, Ben, stood still holding a bag of vegetables. He didn't flinch, didn't speak, only glanced at Naraka. Her eyes widened. Her cheeks changed to a soft violet, the Altari color for embarrassment. The woman at the stall muttered under her breath, "He married her? An alien?" Another voice from behind added, "No wonder he lost his job. Sold himself for a dirty refugee." Ben slowly turned to face the crowd. "She's not my wife," he said loud and clear. People stared. Even Naraka looked down, heart sinking. Then Ben continued, "Not yet." The silence was louder than any scream. Even the wind stopped for a moment. Naraka's hands trembled. He turned to her, calm but steady. "You saved my home. You fixed my broken heart. You raised your kids with dignity. And you never asked for more than a chance." He looked back at the crowd. "She's better than any woman I've ever known." Someone scoffed. "You serious?" Ben nodded. "Dead serious." The shopkeeper who once painted traitor on Ben's wall stared with his mouth open. A few others just walked away, mumbling. But one woman whispered, "Maybe he's right." That evening, back at home, Naraka stood by the window, still holding the bag of food. She hadn't spoken since they left the market. The children were playing. Kiro tried to teach Zuni how to balance a spoon on his nose. Ben poured tea into 2 cups and walked over. "You didn't say anything," he said. She didn't look at him. "You embarrassed me." "I told the truth." She finally turned. "You called me your wife." "Almost wife," he corrected with a small smile. She laughed softly, then grew quiet again. "Do you mean it?" Ben's voice turned gentle. "Only if you say yes." She looked at her children, safe, warm, laughing. Then she looked at the man who gave them that life. "Yes," she said, "but only if you promise me something." "What's that?" "Never stop being the one who stands up." Ben raised his teacup. "Deal." Weeks passed. Whispers turned to talk. Talk turned to interest. Ben and Naraka worked together on Mr. Holloway's farm. The children went to a local school. Zuni wore shoes that actually fit. One day, the same city office that once denied her work called her in. A young woman behind the desk looked nervous. "You were married to a war refugee, correct?" Naraka nodded. "And now living with a human guardian." "I'm not just living with him," she said. "Then, are you officially joined by law?" Before Naraka could answer, the door opened. Ben stepped in, holding a form. He placed it on the table. "Now we are." And the same humans who once turned her away began to greet her. Some still frowned, but others waved. Some even smiled. One evening, Ben stood outside the house watching the stars. Niraka stepped beside him, holding Zuni in her arms. "You still think helping me was the right choice?" she asked. Ben chuckled. "Best mistake I ever made." Zuni yawned and whispered, "Are you my new dad?" Ben looked at him surprised, then smiled. "Yeah, I guess I am."